trying to keep up with everything going on in TV and film and, well, the whole media landscape. It can feel like a job in itself, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But this is kind of like your cheat sheet. We've gone through and picked out the big stuff that went down this past weekend, March 22nd and 23rd, 2025, all thanks to those clever folks over at Further and Better. Think of it as like a shortcut to being in the loop, you know?
Right, yeah. We've sifted through all the noise, all the reports and announcements, and we've brought you just the core, what's actually happening, new drama series, updates on films, some industry trends, the whole 9 yards.
And wow, this week is a wild one.
It is.
We're talking about new dramas that dig into some really deep topics like family secrets and the gritty realities of youth crime. Plus, we've got the return of a historical series that a lot of people have been waiting for. And on top of that, we'll take a look at some cool film premieres.
Yeah.
A global media phenomenon that I think you're going to recognize.
You definitely will.
And some really interesting shifts that are happening within the industry itself.
That's right. The goal here is to get to the most interesting and relevant stuff and make it easy for you to understand. We want to give you a clear view of the media landscape without you having to be an expert yourself. So, you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, great.
Let's kick things off by talking about some of these new drama series that have been announced. First up is Generations. That's from the Danish broadcaster DR, and it sounds really intense. So the discovery of, get this, mummified infant remains sets off this like chain reaction and reveals some major family secrets.
Yeah, and the creator, Emma Haldal, she's exploring some really interesting themes here, like epigenetics.
Oh, wow.
That's the idea that our experiences, our environment, they actually leave marks on our genes, and these can be passed down through generations. It's a pretty powerful concept for a family drama. And then, of course, you've got this whole exploration of how the past influences the present, and there's this undercurrent of female shame. It's a really fascinating mix of mystery, drama, and even some horror elements, and it all plays out against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Wow. So that adds a whole other dimension to the idea of generational connection, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a 6-part series with what they're calling a stellar ensemble cast. So if you're into those complex, multi-layered family stories, this is definitely one to watch.
For sure. Now, for something totally different, we have Adolescence. It's a new Netflix series, and it tackles a very serious, very timely issue: youth, knife crime, and masculinity.
Yes, and there's some major talent behind this one. The screenwriter is Jack Thorne. He's known for taking on difficult social issues with real sensitivity. He co-wrote this with the actor Stephen Graham. And the director is Philip Barantini. He's using a really interesting technique here, single-take episodes, which I think will create a real sense of immediacy and tension.
Yeah, sounds really raw and immersive.
Yeah.
The report mentioned that Thorne's inspiration came from his own experiences and his anger, and it ties into his work on addressing social injustices.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more than just a crime drama, right?
Yeah.
It's got a real element of social commentary.
Right. Thorne's work often examines the political and social structures that lead to these problems, and Adolescence sounds like it's going to be another unflinching look at some very harsh realities. Now, switching gears, we've got This City Is Ours. It's a BBC production, a 6-part crime drama set in Liverpool, and it stars the one and only Sean Bean.
Oh, Sean Bean in a crime drama. That already sounds amazing.
Right.
And it's created by Stephen Butchard, and it centers on a crime family and their struggles with law enforcement in a world where crime is constantly changing. Liverpool is becoming a really popular setting for these types of stories these days, don't you think?
It is, and the team behind this one is really impressive. It's produced by Left Bank Pictures. They've got a great track record with drama, and the director is Saul Dibb. It's set to air on BBC One and iPlayer in the UK, but it will also be distributed internationally by Sony later this year. So it's got the potential to be really big.
Absolutely. Now, for those who love historical drama, we have a long-awaited return. Wolf Hall, The Mirror and the Light. This is it's the adaptation of the final book in Hilary Mantel's Cromwell trilogy. It's coming to BBC and Masterpiece. And this one's had a really tough journey to the screen, hasn't it?
It has. The reports talk about significant delays because of the pandemic, and there were scheduling conflicts with the cast. And of course, there's the sad fact that Hilary Mantel passed away in 2022. But The director, Peter Kosminski, and the writer, Peter Strawn, they were determined to finish this trilogy.
Hmm.
And Mark Rylance is coming back as Thomas Cromwell, which is amazing.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Me too. It's a 6-part series scheduled to air in 2025.
Great. Now, for something a bit different, Channel 4 is dipping their toes into the digital original world with their first sci-fi drama, Beth. And the story sounds really interesting. It's about a couple, Joe and Molly, and their lives get turned upside down by a shocking revelation at their daughter's birth.
Yeah, and the way they're releasing Beth is interesting too. The writer and director Uzo Ole has created 3 15-minute episodes. They'll be available on YouTube and Channel 4 streaming, but they'll also be broadcast as a single 45-minute episode on TV. It's a really clever way to cater to different viewing habits, and the whole idea of identity and parenthood, but within a sci-fi context, sounds really thought-provoking.
It does. Now, over on Peacock, we have a new crime drama called The Good Daughter. It's based on Corinne Slaughter's novel, and Olivia Williams has just joined the cast. She's playing the mother of the main character, who is played by Jessica Biel. And this sounds like another really intense and suspenseful story, focusing on family trauma and buried secrets that come to light after a home invasion.
Yeah, Corinne Slaughter's novels are known for their really twisted plots and characters. These are people who are often dealing with really difficult pasts. And the pilot is directed by Leslie Linka Glatter. She's done some amazing work on television. And Bruna Papandreou's production company, Made Up Stories, is involved. So yeah, I think this 8-episode series could be a real edge-of-your-seat kind of show.
Oh, yeah. And last but not least, in the world of new dramas, we have Renan. It's a Prime Video production of 4-episode World War II drama that centers around a very controversial figure, Henry Renan, a Norwegian who collaborated with the Gestapo. It's always interesting when stories explore these morally ambiguous people, you know.
It is. This is a co-production with Miso Film and PV2. The director is Kenneth Karlstad, and the writer is Evan Holtman. Filming starts this autumn, and they're aiming for a premiere in 2026. You know, looking at the complexities of collaboration and betrayal during wartime, that can offer a lot of insight into human nature, especially under extreme pressure. So I think this could be a really significant addition to the whole genre of World War II stories.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really diverse and exciting lineup of new dramas coming our way. Let's switch gears now and talk about some recent film updates and premieres. The big one, of course, is Disney's live-action Snow White. It finally premiered after well, it sounds like a very long and somewhat bumpy road to the screen.
Yeah, almost a decade in the making. That's quite something. The premiere was at Hollywood's El Capitan Theater on March 15th, and it sounds like it was a real celebration. Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot were there, and Disney really went all out. There were kid-friendly activities, even a bunny on the red carpet. And they also had D23 interviews with Jodie Benson, you know, the voice of Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Maybe they're trying to draw a connection between the classic animations and these new live-action adaptations. It's great that they finally got this film out there after all those earlier challenges.
It is. Now, for something completely different, we have Ash, a new film from Flying Lotus. They're calling it a psychedelic space thriller. This one sounds like it's really pushing boundaries.
It does. It's about an astronaut, played by Eiza Gonzalez, who wakes up to find that her entire crew is dead. Aaron Paul is also in it. And the film explores paranoia and that basic instinct to survive, all within this incredibly isolated and dangerous environment. Flying Lotus has actually said that he was inspired by Suspiria, which gives you an idea of the visual style he's going for. He worked with writer Johnny Remler on this, and he sees the film as a way to experiment with storytelling. And people are saying that Gonzalez gives a really powerful performance, which, you know, makes sense for this kind of psychological thriller.
It sounds like a film that will definitely stay with you. And there was also a brief mention of a film called The Assessment, where Elizabeth Olsen and Alicia Vikander, they both said that filming was uncomfortable.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that they said that the discomfort was almost easier because it was for Fleur Fortune's debut feature. So it seems like they really trusted the director and they had a shared artistic vision. Maybe this suggests that the film itself will be very raw and honest.
Now let's move on to something that's taken the world by storm. Bluey, the Australian animated series. It's a global phenomenon, a $2 billion industry. It's amazing how something so seemingly simple can become so huge, isn't it?
It really is. I think what's so captivating about Bluey is that it connects with both kids and adults. It's not just silly fun. It's actually got some really heartwarming and relatable stories about family life. You've got the puppy siblings, Bluey and Bingo, and their parents, Bandit and Chili, and they're dealing with the same everyday joys and struggles that all parents face. What do you think it is about this show that resonates so deeply with people worldwide?
That's a good question.
Mhm.
I think it shows the beautiful chaos of family life in a really authentic way. It captures those little moments, the struggles, the triumphs. And, the parents aren't perfect, which makes it even more relatable for adults who are watching.
Right, exactly. And it's won a ton of awards, Emmys, since it debuted in 2018. And it's just exploded into this massive empire of merchandise, live shows, books, even immersive experiences. The report actually compares it to Taylor Swift in terms of cultural impact.
Wow. Yeah, it really has tapped into something universal about family and childhood.
It has. Now let's shift gears and talk about some of the things that came out of the industry itself this past weekend. The UK Cinema Association had their annual conference, and it sounds like there were some pretty important discussions.
Yeah, what were some of the key takeaways?
Well, it seems like there are some ongoing challenges and changes happening in the world of cinema. One of the big things they talked about was the need for more consistent and effective marketing from distributors, especially for films that aren't, those massive blockbuster movies. But they did acknowledge the success of the Event Cinema Association, which focuses on bringing live events like theater and concerts to cinema audiences.
Yeah. It really highlights how much the industry is trying to find that balance
Well,
between the traditional cinema experience and the convenience of streaming.
it does.
What's interesting is that they're worried about some of the bigger films underperforming. Even the big budget releases aren't guaranteed to be hits anymore. And it seems like they feel that audiences aren't really engaging with the current marketing strategies. The long-term effects of things like extended theatrical release windows and the growth of streaming. Those are big concerns too.
Yeah, it sounds like they're calling for more collaboration between cinema operators and distributors. They want a better understanding of what marketing actually works, and they want more support for the theatrical experience overall to make sure it survives in this rapidly changing environment.
Right. It's a constant struggle to adapt to new consumer behaviors while also preserving that unique communal experience of watching a film in a theater. Now, speaking of industry changes, Jane Featherstone, the co-founder of Sister, she had some interesting things to say at the UK Screen Summit.
She did. She actually suggested that Netflix's dominance might be waning. And she pointed to the increasing collaboration between public broadcasters and global streamers as a reason for this.
Yeah, she specifically mentioned the success of This Town from the BBC, Chernobyl from HBO, which Sister co-produced, and Passenger from ITVX. And she really emphasized the importance of trusting creative voices and building long-term partnerships in the industry rather than just chasing trends. That's a really interesting perspective on where the streaming world might be headed.
It is. It suggests a future that's more diverse and maybe more resilient for content creation, and this whole idea of adapting to new challenges. That came up in another report that talked about the importance of international collaboration for funding scripted series.
So it sounds like it's getting harder to get those global commissions from the big streamers like Netflix and Apple TV plus Nets. A lot of productions are having to rely on multiple funding partners from different countries to get off the ground. For example, Buccaneer Media, which is based in the UK, they're now focusing on local and specialized streaming platforms because they're seeing the US market as a bit stagnant. And everyone seems to be prioritizing cost-effective series with strong IP, things that are based on popular books or games because they already have a built-in audience.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's less money to go around, so producers have to be more strategic and creative to get their projects funded. And on a slightly different note, it looks like Lifestyle TV in Australia is embracing branded content partnerships.
That makes sense, given the current economic climate.
It does. Shows like Healthy Homes Australia and Open Homes Australia, they're using these partnerships with brands to help cover production costs and, even make sure they get commission in the first place. Production companies like Croc Media and Abode Entertainment, they're realizing that this approach allows brands to share the risk, and it gives networks like 10 and 9 Life some low-cost programming that also appeals to advertisers.
So it's a win-win situation in a way.
It is. It's a way for independent productions to keep going when things are tough. So basically, we're seeing some major shifts and adaptations happening all over the media world, both creatively and financially. Now let's move on to some of the executive moves that were announced. There have been a few interesting appointments and promotions.
Yeah, fill us in.
Okay. So in Italy, Roberto Genovese is taking over as head of Rai Ragazzi, which handles children's programming for Rai. In the U.S., Ben Anderson has been named VP of Unscripted at MediaPro. And Joel Meyer has been promoted to EVP of Worldwide Production at Lionsgate. Over at Viaplay Group, Mads Lindemann has an expanded role as head of creative content. And Amazon has appointed Del Fordham as head of Audible Originals in the Asia-Pacific region.
So lots of new faces and new places potentially shaking things up.
Exactly. These leadership changes often indicate shifts in strategy and, where these companies are headed in the future. Now, the Niigata Animation Festival took place in Japan, and Look Back won the Grand Prix, but there were also some really interesting discussions about AI's impact on the animation industry.
And what were people saying about that?
Well, some big names in the industry, like Kiyotaka Oshiyama, who directed Look Back, and Koji Yamamura, who was a juror at the festival, they expressed concerns that AI-generated animation might lack the love and logic that human-created animation has. They were worried that the focus might shift to profit over actual artistic expression and creativity.
Yeah, it's a really important discussion to be having, especially as AI becomes more and more prevalent in creative fields.
It is. Now let's talk about some of the projects that are in development. There's news that the Jason Bourne franchise might be getting a new home.
Really?
Yeah, the Robert Ludlum estate wants to revive the series, and they're looking for a buyer for the entire franchise and Ludlum's library. Apparently, Skydance, Apple, and Netflix are all interested, and even Universal, the studio that originally made the Bourne films, they might be trying to hold on to some of the rights.
Wow. So the franchise that really redefined the spy genre with the Bourne identity back in 2002 could be going in a completely new direction.
It could. And of course, everyone wants to know if Matt Damon will come back. That would be a huge draw for fans.
Definitely. We also have Sydney Sweeney attached to star in and produce a thriller for Warner Bros. Called I Pretend to Be a Missing Girl. It's based on a viral story from Reddit, which is becoming a surprisingly popular source of inspiration for Hollywood.
It is. The screenplay is by Eric Roth, who won an Oscar for Forrest Gump. And the story is about a woman who pretends to be a missing girl to scam her family. But then she discovers something really dark and unexpected. It sounds like the kind of thriller that could be a real hit, and Sweeney being both the star and producer is definitely interesting.
It is. Another cool project in development is a film adaptation of the video game Split Fiction. It's from Hazelight Studios, and it sparked a big bidding war in Hollywood, which shows how valuable video game IP has become.
For sure. The game just came out recently, and it's already sold over 2 million copies. It's written by Joseph Fares and Sebastian Johansson, and it's got this really unique concept where authors get trapped inside their own stories.
That sounds trippy.
It does. All these studios fighting for the rights, it definitely shows that they believe it has a lot of potential as a film. Now, for fans of Prison Break, there's a sequel series being developed by Hulu. They've cast Clayton Cardenas and Miles Bullock, but it sounds like this is a whole new story with new characters, not a continuation of the original.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the creator, Elgin James, wants to reimagine the Prison Break universe, not just bring back the original characters, Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell. It'll be interesting to see how they capture the essence of that escape drama formula with a new set of people and challenges.
Definitely. Now, there's always a lot of buzz about the future of James Bond.
Yeah.
And there's news that Amy Pascal and David Heyman might be joining Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson as producers for the next film. That sounds like a big shift behind the scenes.
It does. Now that Daniel Craig's run as Bond is over, Eon Productions is clearly planning a major reboot under Amazon and MGM. Bringing in producers like Pascal and Heyman with their experience and their track records, it suggests that they're looking for a fresh new take on the character. We don't know who the next Bond will be yet, but this is definitely something to watch.
For sure. Zach Braff and Esther McGregor are teaming up for a psychological thriller called Clean Hands. McGregor plays a teenager who's dealing with the aftermath of her sister's death, and she starts questioning reality. Braff is her therapist.
Right. It's directed by Audrey Cummings, written by Julie Auerbach, and produced by Gold Rush Entertainment. And they're planning to pitch it to buyers at Cannes. It's a classic setup for a thriller. A young person struggling with grief and maybe unreliable memories.
Sounds intriguing. Now, for those who like horror, Robbie Amell and Victoria Justice are starring in Send a Scare. It's about online influencers who create custom scares that that end up backfiring in a very deadly way.
Yeah, it's directed by Travis Clough and Chris Loffing, written by Greg Zahentner and Ryan Graspy, and AGC Studios is handling distribution. It's a really timely story, playing on our fascination with online content and, how things can go wrong very quickly in the digital world.
Definitely. Now, this is really cool. Werner Herzog is making his animated feature debut with The Twilight World. It's based on his own novel, which tells the true story of Hiru Onoda, a Japanese soldier who stayed hidden on a Philippine island for years after World War II ended because he didn't know the war was over.
Yeah, it's a really interesting project. Herzog is known for blending realism with a kind of dreamlike quality in his films, and the producers of Flea, that amazing animated documentary, are involved in this one. So I think it's going to be visually stunning and very unique. The story itself fits perfectly with Herzog's themes of loyalty and how our perception of reality can be skewed in extreme situations.
Absolutely. Disney Plus is getting into the international remake game with a German version of Call My Agent called Agentor. It's set in a talent agency in Berlin, and it will keep that same meta-humorous tone that made the original so popular.
Right. So it'll be poking fun at the entertainment industry. This six-part series is being made with Gaumont and Constantine Television. Layla Steeler is the writer, and Stefan Buehling is directing. Taking that same wit and insider perspective to a different culture, I think it could be really entertaining. It's scheduled for release in 2025.
We've also got a Canadian-UK co-production in development called Long Hot Summer. It's a coming-of-age comedy drama set in 1970s Britain, exploring themes of youth, culture, and race relations against a backdrop of music and political change.
Yeah, it's created by Nathaniel Price. It sounds like it has the potential to capture a really specific moment in time and explore those universal themes of growing up and finding your identity. And the fact that it's an international co-production just shows how important those collaborations are these days for getting projects funded.
For sure. And lastly, Amazon MGM has an untitled comedy in the works with a great cast. Regina Hall, Will Ferrell, and Zac Efron. It's about a woman who runs into her high school sweetheart on her honeymoon.
Oh, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. In a good way.
Exactly. Nicholas Stoller is directing and co-writing with Francesca Del Banco. Regina Hall is also an executive producer. Production is supposed to start later this year, so we might see this one sooner rather than later.
Oh, let's hope so. Now let's quickly run through some deals and sales. Visit Films closed deals for the thriller 40 Acres in the UK and the Middle East. ProSiebenSat.1 got approval to sell their Newcomb Group's Parship meat to General Atlantic. Lizzie Kaplan and Tom Riley started their own production company, Westbourne Pictures. Ray Levine and J.T. Sao launched Left No Ring Productions, which will focus on diverse stories. Starz has a docuseries coming out called Magic City, an American fantasy about the influence of an Atlanta strip club on hip-hop culture. And ATV sold the Turkish dramas The Father and One Love to Latvia and Lithuania.
Wow, lots of movement in the industry. And finally, a couple of renewals.
Yes. Severance has been renewed for a third season on Apple TV Plus Spake.
Great news.
And American Dad got renewed for a 20th season on Fox.
That's impressive.
It is.
So as you can see, it's been a very busy time in the world of TV, film, and media. We've covered new drama series, film premieres, industry trends, business deals, and more. Hopefully we give you a good sense of what's going on without overloading you with information.
Right. And thinking about all these international collaborations and stories that are very specific to certain cultures, it raises the question, what trends do you think will shape the content we watch in the future? Will it be all about global appeal, or will there be a focus on those culturally specific stories that resonate with certain communities? It's something to consider as the media landscape continues to evolve.
Yes, it's a really fascinating time to be a viewer and a creator. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you then.